All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Start, Build, Grow Show. And as usual, we have an incredible guest, an incredible story, and a really cool journey that we're going to be talking about today on the show. Without further ado, we're going to bring in my man in just a minute from Roofing Business Partner. You've heard of him many a times over. He's been in the roofing industry for a number of years, and he's a problem solver, brilliant mind, really, probably one of the most operationally sound integrators in the industry, super smart, and just crushes implementation and integration in roofing businesses. And I'm excited to bring him in just a moment. All right, everybody, welcome in Mr. Adam Sand with Roofing Business Partner, now known as, you shrunk it down to Roofing RBP Consulting. We've had you on the show before, and it's always a good time, hanging out with you and being able to spend some time and getting to know you really well, and just hearing and sharing your story, man. It's super cool to see what you're doing in the industry, and more importantly, before I even get into it, like, I appreciate you, man, because you've dedicated your life, made lots of sacrifices for the industry, and you're one of the true believers that really contributes to building this industry, and I'm grateful for that, my man. So welcome in,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Adam.
That's a super like high compliment coming from you. So I appreciate that a ton. I don't frequently get to like look at it through the lens of making sacrifices to build the industry, and I find that an interesting perspective. But I suppose you could say that you're right. I mean, I do spend quite a bit of time not with family and not at home to do this, to basically run this business and to do the things we do for our clients. But I hope that deep down we're making a better roofing industry as a result of the things that we're doing.
You know what, my man? I appreciate the humility that you are, brother. You're doing things, you're helping companies, you're helping people achieve success, and you're doing it the right way. So it's cool, man. So give yourself some credit there. In true fashion here, this show really kind of evolved from a place of, we really want to share the entrepreneurial journey in the roofing space, right? A lot of people who watch this are roofing, but also in, other industries. And I think there's so many takeaways from, sharing stories and really understanding that, it's cool to see, Adam's all over the place, doing things and making things happen, working with all these amazing companies. But there's a whole journey behind that, and there's a whole growth curve of what you've learned as an entrepreneur. So I actually want to kind of shift gears. I know we talk a lot about the business side and stuff like that, but let's go ahead and share the journey. So we are going to dive in. Adam, you've been in business a long time. Let's go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, man. And I like this. I like to start here because I love to hear the story. I feel like every successful entrepreneur that we bring on the show has a cool story of how it originated. And this isn't just necessarily like, hey, I just started your first business, but were you selling candy, knocking doors, shoveling snow? Like, where did you get that early entrepreneurial bug?
I've only shared this story once anywhere publicly, and it's interesting you ask it. But it's funny how it starts to become a question that people ask all of a sudden, is like, well, how did you end up becoming the person that you are? And my parents grew up, when I grew up, my parents didn't have a lot of money. My mom was very entrepreneurial, didn't have much interest in being a mom. She really wanted to be a business owner. She has her own story to tell. My dad, he was very play it safe, right? And so when my parents were together, they worked really well, because my mom was the kind of person who never checked the oil, never changed checked the tire pressure, always filled her gas at like 3 thimbles left. My dad was the kind of person who always checked the oil, always checked the tire pressure, always filled up at a quarter tank. But when the engine blew up or something went wrong, he would lose his mind, like borderline suicidal. Like he could not handle a crisis. My mom, however, as soon as there was a crisis, she went to work. And so when they were together, it worked really well. But growing up, my parents would start businesses and sell them. And so we had, and then as they got as they started to fight as a married couple, they eventually divorced. They stopped appreciating each other's differences, and they started to combat each other over them. And so, we went through a period where there wasn't a lot of money. And my mom, because you can remember 1987 in Canada. I mean, the Canada was only really a sovereign country for the last like 44 years. So women didn't get mortgages back then. Like women couldn't run businesses. Like Canada grew way slower than the United States. You know what I mean? And so she was very interested in business, but everything had to go through my dad. And she read a lot of books because she couldn't go to school because there was no women going to business school. And so she read a lot of books on tape, and I would listen to those as a kid because we were too poor to like buy music. And so I couldn't get like CDs or tapes or whatever as a kid. We lived way out in the country, so we didn't get like radio, so I couldn't get the music on the radio. So if I wanted to listen to something at night so I could drown out the sound of my parents fighting, I listened to my mom's books on tape, which was like The Popcorn Report, Awaken the Giant Within, Kevin Trudeau's Mega Memory Course, like old books, you know what I mean? Like talking about Bethlehem Steel and diabetes, but that like just kind of formed what I wanted to be. So when my parents kind of had two things that they wanted me to know how to do. They wanted me to know how to read and use a computer, because my dad was like, computers are the future. My dad can't read. So he was like, my son has to know how to read. And when along that vein of they have to know how to use computers, my mom literally started a business that would allow executives to get access to the internet before the internet was like ubiquitous in people's homes or even in people's offices. And so it was like the ExecuTrade Center, which was basically a place for business owners to get access to the internet. And I was just allowed to play on it all day because my parents just thought that was where I should be spending my time. You know what I mean? And so, I started collecting bookmarks as a kid, but because of all the business books, all the things that I was curious about, because my parents did businesses with pluses and minuses and ups and downs, even after divorce, they still did business together because my dad would benefit from the tax write-offs when they didn't make money. And then when they would sell them, they would make money. And so all my bookmarks back in like Netscape were all business. So my first business was like 16, designing websites for the town that I lived in, this tiny little rural town in Edmonton, or like outside of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And from there, I just kind of always seen it like, it's like, if you want to buy something, you have to go make a business. Because I tried the military because that was safe and my dad said I should do it. I tried the oil rigs because that's where all my friends were making money. But I always took all my money and then piled it into a business of some kind to try and make money because that's what my dad did. And then eventually I learned on my lesson only recently that you can't serve two masters. You got to have one thing. Because I had like two jobs, or a business and a job all at the same time. Even when I had the roofing business, I was partnered with my partner. Before, I still had a job running a car dealership. And then I started roofing business partner while I was still at the car dealership, because we had all the success with Facebook ads. And I got like 28 podcast interviews, one of which was yours, in 1 year about roofing and Facebook ads. And so every roofer reached out to me about Facebook ads. And I was like, man, I could make a business out of this too. So then I had roofing business partner. I had the car dealership, which was a more than full-time job. And then I also had a partnership in a roofing company that was a startup. And I was doing estimates, doing Facebook videos on a roof while telling roofers about doing Facebook videos on the roof, while going back to the car dealership, answering calls about roofing sales, in between telling my sales guys how to be better salespeople. And eventually my boss is like, you can't do all this. Like, you're not underperforming, but you're not performing to your potential. And we need somebody here who's like fully invested. So you got to kind of pick. And I picked, well, I got two businesses that I own and one that I don't. I'm going over there. And then I did roofing business partner and my roofing company for 4 or 5 years. And then this year is basically when I decided me and my partner basically decided that it'd be best if, again, I just had one focus. And so I made my focus the one thing that I was the whole owner of, which was RBP. And that's why I changed to RBP Consulting, was because as we started to focus on this, we started to get involved in like solar, and then we took on a landscaping company. And then we started taking on some people in the industry like Dope Marketing and Directory and Hook, and helping other people with their HubSpots. And so I was like, well, we're not really just roofing. Like, we're helping the vendors of the roofing industry as well. We're working on a supply company now. Mm-hmm. And so we just changed to RBP Consulting because RBP actually, we kind of just transformed it to mean like revenue operations, business management, and process development, because that's kind of what we do here.
I love it, man. And I think there's so much to unpack there because this has come up a lot lately. And we see this, I know you see this all the time. You know, roofing contractors that are, they maybe see a little success. And a lot of times, you know, we start companies that we all have that entrepreneurial bug, right? We all just want to be entrepreneurs and get this idea. We just go after it. A lot of us do, right? You have that kind of like, you know, that high visionary mentality, just ready, fire, aim, and just go for it. And I think it takes a seasoned, experienced entrepreneur. You got to go through this certain rite of passage to get to a place where you truly understand discernment. Because it's really easy to chase shiny objects, right? It's look for that next big thing. And hey, if I saw some success here, the next big idea that I woke up with or thought about in the shower or talked to some buddies over, you know, at a campfire or over some beers, and oh, cool, I'm just going to chase this other idea. And we find ourselves in that exact situation. I've been there, and I think there's a lot of people in our industry, in the entrepreneur industry, that that finds himself there too. Is you take on too much, and at some point it gets to what I call diminishing returns, and that means that it's diminishing returns on your own time, whereas you're not able to get the most of your own ability because you're spread so thin and you're trying to bounce between so many different things that not one thing is actually getting your full attention, and it's actually not growing, or it's not reaching its full potential because the leader, not because they're not good enough, it's because they are not focused enough. I think there's so much to be learned there. And if somebody's listening to this who's early on, you have this idea, you got a company, you're like, I'm going to start another one. Be careful. Listen to experienced entrepreneurs that have been there, that have done that, and then circle all the way back around to get to a point where they just focus on one thing or two things, but keep it real, you know, singular when it comes to that focus, because you want to be a master of something, right? Isn't that the objective? We want to be the master of one thing instead of a jack of all trades.
Like
Easier
saying no saves more businesses than saying yes ever could. I think the reason that we do it is because for a short period of time in our entrepreneurial journey, at the beginning, new things tend to have disproportionately good returns, because in your beginning of your journey as a business owner, it's like you have to constantly keep doing like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because you're like, oh, we took in some money. Well, how do I properly job cost? So you learn that, and you go maybe get a book or get a thing to learn that, and you learn a new thing, and you learn a new thing, and you learn a new thing. And then you start to pile things on, and then it's like, oh, we're making money in roofing, we should do gutters. And then you make a little bit of money on that, and then you think, oh, because we can do gutters, we can do siding. And it's the problem is that initial reward, right, becomes what you believe to be the norm, and then it becomes this boredom thing, right, where you get this like, and it happens in relationships, it happens in exercise, it happens in business, where you get this like boredom thing, because you get there's a price to pay for getting good at something, and the price you pay that getting good at something is it loses its excitement. And so then you go seeking the excitement, which isn't the point of business. The point of business is not to constantly be in a state of excitement, because excitement is usually just chaos and trying to like manage chaos and entropy to create growth, right? And so as business owners, we have to look and say, like, if we wanted, like Warren Buffett talks about this, Charlie Munger talks about this, the Hormozis talk about this. So I'm not doing, this isn't groundbreaking in any way, but a lot of people still haven't heard it, which is that if you want to like figure out if you should do something, you should try and use like this inversion thinking, which is like, if I wanted to ruin my business, what would I do? It's like, I would constantly be distracted. I would surround myself with yes men who always want to join me on the next journey. I would try and always replace, getting better at the thing that I'm doing with doing something I suck at to start something new. If I wanted to destroy my business, those are some things that I could do. So then if I want my business to succeed, do the opposite of those things, right? Stay focused on becoming the best in the world at the thing you do. Like before you go and do Facebook ads, be the best in the world at pay-per-click, or be the best in the world at door knocking. Don't try and spread yourself too thin. Surround yourself with people and employees and teammates who want to like get on a path and chart their career over the next 12 months, 48 months, and say, this is where I hope to end up in your business. and then don't keep taking them off weird paths, right? And then just stay intentional about what you're doing so that you can kind of create simplified marketing messages and people know exactly what it is that you do so that they can send you referrals and help you. But nobody talks about, not enough people talk about that, because we're falling into the constant trap of, the social media. Oh, Johnny's doing this in his business, so I should do it too. Oh, there's an ad talking about how to make money in TikTok or how to make money in cold calling. And so then it's like a constant, people like you or me or Sumo Quote or different softwares, they're always selling you. And then people, instead of focusing on their business and saying, what does my business need? They go to an ad to determine what their business needs. And that ad is basically saying, this is what we need. We need customers who want this. And then you almost want it just because you don't know what your business needs. Instead, you should stop looking at the ads and focus on your business and say, what's going wrong? What do I need to fix it? And then go become problem aware and then become solution aware. Don't become solution aware and then go looking for a problem to justify your purchase.
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it with the excitement piece. It's like so many, and it's especially in roofing, I think, because you can catch lightning in a bottle. And you can start a roofing company, and the next thing you know, your backyard gets smashed with a hailstorm, and all of a sudden you're running a multi-million-dollar company. And it's exciting. It's so much fun. You're solving problems and, throwing people at problems. And you're just like, it's like all this stuff's happening. It's super exciting. And then all of a sudden you now actually have to learn how to look at your business as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, and start making, like informative, educated decisions as a leader, as a business owner. And that's not as much fun. And it's boring. And then it's like, okay, what's next? What's the next shiny object? Oh, we're going to open new offices or start a software or do this or that, or I'm going to, go into a whole different industry and do all these things. And again, I say this from experience. Like at one point I had 7 different businesses and I was like, what am I doing? At one point, then I had to look back and reflect like, yo, you're a good starter. You're a good motivator. You're a good leader, trying to be the best leader I can be. Right. And I had a knack to get people rallied and get people going. But how does that translate when you're trying to follow through and build something that has longevity, build something that can overcome and adapt year after year of all the real life challenges that you're going to see after that honeymoon phase of starting. Get over them. That's what separates the true entrepreneurs and the successful business owners from the hustlers that are just trying to, get that. It's almost like an addiction, right? You're trying to get that next dopamine hit of excitement in your business, So that's, I think, what going through those ups and downs and really making it through a full few cycles of business is really what separates people.
There's 2 really good things about what you're kind of saying there. And like you said, like what's next, right? And I think that getting support and education is a huge part that, like, and I mean, you hear about this all the time. All the influencers say, I wish something like what I sell was available when I was new. And it's not wrong. It's like a great sales pitch, but it's not wrong. Because I remember when Joe first came to me and wanted to start a roofing business. And I was like, I just had a passion for it. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, and I didn't know the kind of margins that could exist in the roofing industry. So I was like, okay, well, show me like how much. He goes, oh, it's labor and material times 2. That's what you charge. And I was like, okay, well, how much is labor? And he would like not really have an answer. Cause again, he was a shingler that like helped the owner sometimes, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea what he didn't know. So I was like, okay, well, like, let's just do some jobs and then like, we'll look at them and we'll try and figure out what you should make. And like, I remember like the first 3 months, it was like the goal is to make $1,100 a job. You know what I mean? That was the goal. And if you take, let's say like in those couple of months, you did 2 jobs a week, right? So that's like, what's that? 3 months, 2 jobs a week, 8, that's 8 jobs a month. That's 24 jobs. If we just made the standard 40%, that's $3,000 a job, let's say. So $3,000 a job times 24, $75,000. It would have been really fucking cheap, pardon my language, to buy one of like the courses that exist out there in the roofing industry today and pay to learn the fact that we should have been charging a 40% gross profit margin, not trying to make $1,100 on every job. You know what I mean? But nobody taught.
Yep. Or not to mention how many people get mixed up between
Right.
markup and margin in the first place because they
And
don't know. They
the
don't have any
sales
formal
guys out
education,
there are
right?
going, well, duh. Well, yeah, but the sales guys learned how to sell. But did you learn anything about running production? Did you learn anything about how to deal with when to order material, how to deal with labor, how to deal, like, you know what I mean? Like how to actually find crews and grow the business from that perspective. How many guys is ideal to have on a job site, how long a job should take, how to set expectations in a customer's eyes, or how to do all this stuff that you didn't have to do as a salesman before you took your boss's contract, changed the logo in the top left corner and start your roofing company? No. And so that's one big thing. But then when we get to but then once you get past all the rookie shit and you're like, and maybe you went out and bought the roofing academy and you learn like the basics and you get like the spreadsheet, you get the reporting and the support and the coaching, you still have your own stupid emotions that go and wreck it all. Right. And
Yep.
and this is where it like really helps when people have family that were in business who learn that how to say no, you're this kind of person and this is how you deal with your emotions. And you need, like, if you have a dad that was highly successful, they can be like, son, come over here, this is the next thing you're going to deal with. But most of roofing is filled with America's forgotten sons. You know what I mean? It's all like independent lone wolves, and so they don't have that kind of like necessarily, or and they wouldn't listen if they did, right? And so the lesson that they need to learn is either they need to see that they are an integrator and they need to partner with or learn how to be a visionary. And if they're a visionary, like most are, they need to get over visionary guilt. And that was the hardest thing for me to do.
Mm.
And I wish that I could, if I could go back and talk to 25-year-old me, I would say get over visionary guilt, because I used to feel like it's like if you get someone who comes in and does 98% of the crap that you don't want to do, that it's really unfair for that integrator or that person to do that. And I've learned now that it's like that integrator, that person who's really talented at that, they don't like to see into the future. That's why they argue with you on every single idea you ever had. And all they ever do is come up with what's going to go wrong,
Mm.
is because that's how they think. That's their job. That's their purpose. That's their personality type. And the visionary is the kind of person who says, yeah, 7 things are going to go wrong along the way, and we're going to fucking do it anyway. Because guess what? Look what's on the other side of
Yeah.
conquering that mountain. And they learn how to, and so you have to get over your visionary guilt and learn how to be able to sell the vision, because those people who don't want you to go off on your shiny ball directions everywhere, those people want consistency. They want you to put an integrator between you and them. And then they want you to sell the vision to everybody in the company so you can go forward. And that sounds like just smoking weed and talking big game, but there's an art to it, right? And then that's where all like
Yes.
the laws of leadership and dysfunctions of a team and all the books you can go read, you have to elevate that lid so that you can keep the 5s because you're a 7, and then keep the 7s because you're a 9. But it all starts with getting over the visionary, or at least for me and for people that I seem to find, is get over the visionary guilt that you're supposed to do everything in your business in order to become successful.
Oh man, you nailed it with that, and I think that it hits home for me as well. I think a lot of people can maybe you've never even thought about it that way, but there is a certain element of like that guilt that you're like, okay, I have to do everything. I have to be the hardest worker. I got to be the smartest person in the room. I have to know all the answers, and you don't know your role, know what your God given strengths are, and know your value. I struggle with that a lot. Is like if I'm not solving every problem and working in the thing early on in my career, right? Felt like I had to do it all. And that's what ultimately led to failure. And then once I figured out that, you know what, my job is to lead. My job is to put the right people in the right seats and to grow them and grow myself and be that visionary and take risks and create direction for people who are actually much more comfortable in a position where they're solving those problems. They're executing, they're implementing the things that the visionary has. And that's what, because it's hard for us as visionaries to see that side, because we only see things through our lens. We don't see things through the opposite lens, where another type of person may love that comfort, love that they love their, I want to be in a position to execute and solve things and check boxes and get things done. Whereas a visionary is like, no, putting it past the finish line, that's not me. I just start things and create vision, right? We have to be able to check out of ourselves and look through the other lenses.
They thrive on completion. And I think that when people are reading books like Traction or Good to Great or something where it talks about get the right people in the right seats, get the wrong people off the bus, and then get the bus going in the right direction, or first who, then what, like they hear that, but they should like close the book and like meditate on it a little bit and think about this visually. Why did he choose this analogy? Like, why didn't he use something like space and mission control, or like a group of people navigating the woods? Why did he choose the bus, right? Well, this is what I think, right? Like, why does everybody use like the whole bus analogy, right? A bus can carry a lot of people. It's an efficient form of travel, and it can move at different rates of speed, right? But the integrator is the person driving the bus, right? That's actually navigating the lefts and the rights and the turns and hitting the brakes and not hitting the other cars on the way. And getting the right people in the right seats means that when the visionary needs to ask for ideas or needs to understand how everybody's enjoying the trip, those people are closer to the front of the seat. We don't think about the seats on the bus as like proximity to the leader. And then what is the visionary doing? He's not just looking out the window, enjoying the ride, and while the integrator is doing all his shit. He is obsessing over the map, over the lay of the land, understanding what is coming up in the terrain. What are the weather patterns looking like? What are other buses doing? Where could we go and enjoy sightseeing, enjoy our journey in a way that maybe is a blue ocean, right? How could we go and see the thing that nobody's going to go see? They have to obsess over the map, the terrain, the future, and think about the time frame. The integrator's job is to figure out how to get the bus there without crashing everybody. And then everybody else in the bus, can you imagine if everybody else is driving? No. Some people need to be closer to the visionary and say, you know what? I really like looking at things like that are the Grand Canyon. And some people in the back who haven't earned the right to have ideas yet, they don't get to say we want to go on a ghost tour. You know what I mean? They have to sit at the back of the bus and learn where the visionary is trying to take the bus. And so if we stop and like meditate on these things like the hedgehog concept or the three uniques, and meditate on why does these authors pick these things that they do, and think about it. Don't just cover to cover complete the book, but obsess over it. Read it 7 times and you'll find wisdom. And that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The wisdom is figuring out the things that you didn't know but we have this Dunning-Kruger effect that affects us all, which is where it's like when you go from a 0 out of like, I know nothing about something to I know 2 out of 10 about something, because of the gap between the 0 and the 2, we become experts in our own mind. We're very confident. But then between 2 and 7, then we start to find out all the shit we didn't know, all the times we looked stupid, right? And then from 7 to 10, you become a master. And so like, if you relate it back to fitness, because it's easy, something everybody understands, if you went to the roofing or to the fitness academy conference, and you had 3 people on stage, you said, hey, what's the best way to lose weight and gain muscle? There's a guy out there who's 21 years old who's going to say, oh, you got to eat keto and do compound exercises, right? And then there's the 6 out of 10 person in the middle is going to go, well, I don't know, I've seen people do keto, but then they gain weight because they eat too much fat, because they just kind of replace it with a bunch of cheese. And like low carb is good because you get the sugar out and the glycemic. I mean, really, I kind of just think that you have to like have a little more discipline, and you got to work out more, but it doesn't really matter what you do. You should probably consult an expert, get a personal trainer. And then the level 9 out of 10 intelligence person says, well, how much weight do you want to lose? And how fast? And how much muscle do you want to gain? What's your lifestyle like? They realize they have to ask 20 more questions to answer that question properly. But that's the problem with human beings, is we follow the 2 out of 10 guy because he's certain and he's succinct in his message. That's the problem with all the fucking politics, right? And so it's the same thing in business, is that we follow the 30-second Instagram reel guy without actually doing the investment into getting the wisdom. We seek quick knowledge. Oh, this guy said keto and compound joint movements. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy in hook, line, and sinker. Sometimes it works because you'll do all the other things right by accident. Other times it'll completely fail. And then you'll think that all experts are liars and marketers are crooks and people who do reels are just a bunch of fucking horse and pony salesmen.
I love it, man. And it's in every industry, and ours is no different. There's a lot of talking heads. I don't want to say it in a bad way, but there's a lot of people just throwing stuff out there. And if you're not, if you're new to the industry or kind of naive or don't really want to put the energy in to actually weed through that to get to the meat of, all right, how do I really do this? And how do I really, change my life and change my business and get to where I want to go without just, the quick, easy button. And that's the other thing. We all want the easy button. And we think that some talking head on social media that does a reel is the easy button because they know everything. That doesn't
And I
necessarily.
put out a shitload of reels.
That doesn't trend.
It's an important part of what I do, but I expect anybody of reasonable intelligence to not take a reel to be the 100% answer. It's like, don't make your decision from a Facebook reel. Take a decision from a book that you read that was peer reviewed and took some time, or something like that, and meditate on the subject. Don't just like, oh, the 30-second talking head said to do this, I'm going to do this now. And that's why 80% of roofing businesses fail, right?
Well, I think there's something to be said. Yes, you got to pay attention, and sure, there's the amazing things you can learn from the real analogy, right? But I think what an experienced, entrepreneur, experienced, person is going to do is they're going to see that, all right, it's got my attention. Yeah. Now what? Let's press in. Okay. Let's follow them. Let's see what else they got. Let's see, do they have a YouTube channel? Do they have a podcast? Do they have a book, or who are they following, or who are they learning from? And really start to peel back that onion to get to the core of, all right, for me, I want to find the best of the best. And I want to surround myself, this is, business leadership 101, but surround yourself by people who are better than you. Find the best, find the people that are inspiring, that you connect with, that you can vibe with, that has that credibility, and learn from them. But that attention is the key. That starts with the attention. And I'm probably not as good as I could be at the attention side, because I just don't love doing it. I love coaching. I love being around people. I love developing leaders and building businesses. And that's what I want to spend my time on, not creating content and throwing videos out there. I'll do it because I have to, but I don't do it because I love it, right? I love this. I can hang out with you on a podcast and I'm learning a ton. And, I know our guests our listeners are learning a ton. Like, this is what I love to do, is really learn from some of the best of the best. So real quick, we are going to take a real quick break. And I want to kind of dive into kind of some of the things you're finding nowadays is some of the key elements to really level up your business in the roofing space and even outside the roofing space. So this show wouldn't be possible without our amazing amazing presenting partner in Job Nimbus. And this show is also brought to you today by our good friends at Company Camp.
Job Nimbus is a fully customizable back office solution.
Track leads, jobs, tasks from one easy-to-use software.
And with the largest ecosystem of integrated partners, if we don't do it, we have a friend who does.
Learn how the #1 back office system in roofing
can help you be efficient, be organized, be professional, and be profitable.
All right, welcome back. Thanks again to our amazing sponsors. This show again wouldn't be possible without that. And real quick, if you're listening to the show, if you're watching the show, if you're loving the content, maybe this is your first time, maybe you've heard us a few times, but you haven't actually clicked that button below to subscribe, do that. Subscribe, throw a comment in there, throw a like, share this out with your friends, share this out with somebody that you think could benefit from this conversation. It helps us grow, and it helps the fun algorithms that we got to heed to. All right, back to it. Awesome conversation so far. And I love how this is, we don't prep and plan this stuff. It's just, let's just get on a conversation with two people who try to, learn as much as they can and try to be as good as they can at what they do. And then here you go. We start talking. And
So we want to talk about what things that are working. And I think the one thing that would work for a lot of entrepreneurs is, every time you're listening to something like this, and if you've made it this far, good for you, because you haven't succumbed to your ADD just yet and gone back to scrolling kitten videos on Facebook. But when he says subscribe or like or make a comment, it's not just for him. He's okay. What he really wants to do is have an impact. That's what happens when people make something like this, when they go through this effort of dealing with trying to schedule a time with another influencer and hope to hell they show up and say smart things and they're prepared and everything like that, is they want to make an impact. And when you like, subscribe, comment, and you put stuff in the thread below this or on the side of it or wherever it is, what happens is it tells Facebook that you want to do more of this. You want to look at more of this. And all the evil crap and stuff that will rob you of your time and your attention and making you a successful business owner, that will show up by accident. So you have to be intentional about telling the algorithm, hey, show me more of this. because this is the kind of stuff that's actually going to make your life better. So don't do it for him or for Randy or for the clout. Do it for yourself. Like, make the comment, because it actually tells Facebook that this is the kind of stuff you want to engage with. And therefore, you will get more educational stuff delivered to you from people like Randy and more of Randy's stuff, so that you don't miss this stuff, because you need to re-up every day as often as possible. You need to re-up on your entrepreneurial juice, because everything else will rob you of that. So I just want to like extra hammer that in there, that this isn't for him, it's for you. But as far as like what is working today, right, and what I'm seeing out there. So for those who don't know, I have been homeless essentially for 15 months on the road. I left Canada and came to the United States and went through the whole immigration process and battled through that. And while I was doing it, lived on the road because I couldn't get a place here. And I traveled all over the country to roofing companies. I've worked in 14 roofing companies for a month, or just about 24 days. And in between that, visited other companies. I've been to 38 in 15 months. And I've been actually, I should say it's a little more than 38, but I've been to 38 states, and I visited a roofing company in each one. Plus, been working at one for about 3.5 weeks consecutively. So I've worked in a lot of roofing companies in the last year and a half. And this compounds on what I've done, but I used to only do it for about 3 months a year. And what's happening right now is you're seeing so many kinds of threats. And I guess the big trend right now is acquisition. Everybody thinks that now or in the near future might be their time to cash in, right? They've heard Hunter's story. They've heard, other people. They've seen the Apple thing going on. They're getting the phone calls, and every influencer realized that this is like cocaine to roofing entrepreneurs, because the idea of being able to sell your roofing company, get a bunch of money, and not do anything anymore, it sounds like the guys who sold Snapchat for $1 billion or Instagram for $1 billion, and they want that. And they've stopped making decisions through the lens of, if this doesn't get bought, you better be able to sell this to yourself as to why you should keep it. Like, if you want someone else to buy it, you should kind of want to keep it. Like, there should be a little bit of this, I want to keep it, because otherwise they'll sell it for too cheap. If you don't want it, you're going to hope that someone else wants it more than you want it. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You still have to build a business that you like, right? And that you're proud of, and that will succeed. Because what is the purchase of your business but a discount on future cash flow? It's basically saying, if you're making $1 million profit a year and you want to get 4x multiple, you heard that somewhere is 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 or whatever number you're dreaming for. It's really saying that your business should be successful the next infinity years, so we'll give you the next 4 in cash so you can F off and give it to us, and we think we can do more with it because we can smash it together with some other ones or something. So it's a discount on future cash flows. So your business has to be making cash flow, right? And you should build a business that you would want to stay at. And so then look, how do we do that? What is something that makes sense, right? Well, we have to try and start thinking about some simple numbers. And one of the things that I love is like revenue per capita. And I actually just went to this 10X thing, and turns out there's this guy named Brandon Dawson, who's partnered with Grant Cardone. He talks a lot about it. I just bought their course because I'm super excited. I mean, it's funny. People don't want to spend $99 a month on education. I spent $40,000 for a 2-day event. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm hoping to learn a thing or two. That's a 2-day event and then 2 one-day events. So 4-day event, 40. So call it 10 grand a day. Right. But he talks a lot about the revenue per capita example as well. He calls it revenue per employee because he would actually count employees. But I got to see where he stands on subs and full-time equivalent when you're dealing with part-time, and how do you know how many people you had on a sub crew? Like, I got to talk to him a bit more about that. But I like revenue per capita, which is the revenue per employee in your business who is not putting nails through shingles, right? Who's not actually in the fulfillment. And then looking at the business, that gives me so much knowledge through so little. And the reason that, and I'll tie this back because it's going to tell you what you should do. So I'm not just like flexing on a cool stat. It actually tells me what to do, and then I'm seeing how it's working in real time. And so most roofing companies, if you take a $10 million company that's got 20 employees that are like, you got 5 salespeople and 3 site superintendents, and you mix it up and you got 20 people, you're doing 500,000 revenue per capita, 500,000 revenue per head. And that's a healthy number. Like, that's a number that's sustainable, but then you have to watch which direction you're going. If you get up to like 700, 750, now you're starting to really get to a high performance level. But when you start to get to around $1 million, and if you don't know if you haven't intentionally designed your business to do that, when you get around 1 million, that usually means people are doing multiple jobs. Like people are saying, oh gosh, we're so crazy busy now. Can you handle that? And I'll handle that. And then we'll like keep this boat running. You know what I mean? And we can't find good people who can do this stuff. And we haven't documented our processes. We'll add processes. But at that $1 million range, error rate increases. People are doing multiple jobs. You get burnout, people quit, then you have chaos, right? And so at that stage, you need to be duplicating processes and putting in systems, right? To increase the unit economics of your business by scaling up the human work so that you decrease the amount of work that people have to do to process a unit of business. But then when you start to dip down and you start to go like from 500 down to 350, right? Well, I mean, quick math on a business, right? Roofing business, like let's say like 30, 30, 30, 10. So like 30 overhead, 30 material, 30 labor, 10 profit. Well, at 350, if you're paying someone $100,000 to do something in your business, you don't have it. You know what I mean? Like at the 30, 30, 30, 10, you don't have $100,000 on 350 to really be putting into that. Like you don't have that money. And so what's happening is you're usually throwing people at problems. So it's like one person farts, everybody wears rubber pants, but now you need someone who is the maintainer of the rubber pants safety program and rubber pants inventory manager, and then need a safety manager to make sure that everybody's wearing the rubber pants. And now you have to also buy the rubber pants. And so if you're throwing the people at problems, then usually you have to try and find a way to automate things, because you're just throwing people at stuff. And so when I'm like flying around and, you know, people are asking me, hey, Adam, what should I do? You know, I start asking these questions. And when they're at either end of the spectrum, I know that I can be useful, right? And so when we're talking about the lower end, right? Well, at the lower end, you're going to be, you then have to figure out, do you have a administrative problem, a production problem, or a sales problem? Like, are you not getting enough leads? Are you not selling enough of the leads you got? Or are you not producing enough of the sales that you're getting? And then from there, you can decide what technology you need. So like, is it field service management? Like we see that field service management and automated communication works really well in those stages, because that's really where the problems lie, is you're usually trying to throw people at these problems instead of throwing systems at it. So that's where you see apps like, you know, Proline or Arrivi being used by a lot of companies. Now, of course, it depends. If you're a $100 million company, you're going to throw a different software at that problem than if you're a $4 million company. But I think that the majority of the people listening are probably closer to the 4 million than the 100 million, right? And so I'll keep it kind of in that realm. And then at the higher end, right, when you get to that like 800, 900, $1 million revenue per capita. I mean, we have a client who's at 1.4 million revenue per capita, but he's been ridiculously intentional about it. And we put 61 hours a month into his CRM for like the last 12 months prior to that. And we've been working with him for 5 years, and it's escalated to that point. So, I mean, that's super, super, super intentional. But when you get to that like 900 to 1 million range, well, now you got to start talking about process duplication. And this all goes without saying, there's also a leadership development aspect of it, but that's not my jam. I leave that to everybody else in the industry to teach leaders how to be leaders. But besides the leadership element, because you have to lead people through that challenge and motivate people to ride that grind, because it's going to be a grind to get it back down to something reasonable. You have to do process duplication. You have to start mapping out how you actually run your business and thinking about how you start to develop like it at like the 8 to 15 range. It's going to be about putting leaders in place and getting them to document processes. At like 3 to 8 million, it's more about you documenting your processes and duplicating yourself, because you're probably just trying to pile in an extra 30 hours a week to do it. And then at like 45 to 75 million, that's where like you kind of have to do process duplication again, because now you're going to split production management into AR, AP, accounting, and production management, production liaison. Now you got 5 people doing a job that used to be one person. So you have to redo it, right? So you're never done, right? But just having that barometer of like, are we in the middle where it's healthy? Are we throwing people at problems? If we're throwing people at problems, we have to put systems and automations in place and scale up the ability for these people to do stuff, right? And if we're going this way, then it's like, if we're making great money, but our error rate's increasing, then we have to do process duplication, lead and hire people, and create more accountability in the business, and just constantly moderating that dial.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that too, because like, you guys are great at what you do in the process thing, and you know that, right? And like how where I've really kind of focused in on kind of my purpose in doing this, and how I can run two businesses and kind of be in my strength zone as an entrepreneur. And that it circles right back to my purpose is to develop leaders. Like I love the conversations, and I love working with high performance individuals and CEOs that really understand this concept, but they want to work through it, and they want to develop and then not only develop themselves, but then reciprocate that. So you're on the side where we got to rinse and repeat and duplicate processes in the business. I'm on the side where I got to create leaders that then duplicate other leaders in the business. And when you meld those two together, that's when magic happens. That's when we see these ultimate like companies, and some incredibly successful companies start to emerge and evolve. And I love that. And that's kind of, what we talked about before we even started recording was, how you and I's paths just keep crossing over the last years. It's like you're working with a lot of my clients and vice versa. And I think that's the dynamic that people are understanding, like, wow, okay, this is really what it takes. And I got to be able to have more of a mentor coach in my life. And I also got to have someone to get in the weeds and make sure to help execute the things that we're trying to create vision for. And it's been,
I think
pretty
that the
cool
industry, like the roofing influencer industry, for lack of a better term, and God, I got to get a better one. But I think that it's starting to, everybody's starting to settle into their spot. You know what I mean? Like 5 years ago, or however many years ago it was, that IMG Expo, and I've told this story before, where I was sitting there and I had a chance. I felt good because I had a chance to speak at it, only because Cody Klein knew a girl that worked there, and he, in exchange for getting my Facebook ad program for free, he got me a speaking spot. But then you stood up in the back and talked about how you had a book, and then Dimitri, the guy where I got my idea for video in the first place, got to ask 2 questions of Gary Vee. And I was like, when I saw all that happen, we were all like, I felt a certain amount of jealousy and insecurity around everybody, because I'm like, well, his business is bigger and that guy's got more friends, and like, you know what I mean? Like there was a certain amount of like that competitiveness, and so that just made me compete hard. And I was stuck up in the Canadian tundra, and it was like I had to find a way to be of use and do this thing that I felt called to do, right? And then now, like, it's like now I can walk into the room, and I legitimately don't think that like you or me or anybody else is really like bothered. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think like Becca gives a shit that you have a YouTube and so on and so forth. Like, there's not as much competitiveness because we realize like there's 107,000 roofing contractors and they all need a lot of help. And so then it became like there's, everybody's kind of found their spot in these like 4 places. And for me, it's interesting to watch because, me being this like analytical person and highly introverted, I stand back and I go, okay, I've like learned from like people that I respect. And like, so Patrick Bet-David talks about, the 4 corners of your business that you have to walk as a CEO, which is like leadership development, business development, innovative campaigns, and systems and processes. And then Naval Ravikant talks about the 4 points of leverage, which are like capital, the ability to deploy money at scale and minimal incremental cost, collaboration, like labor, being able to get labor to collaborate. And that's like leadership, right? Code, right, which is the ability to use like systems, processes, automations, ways to decrease the cost to a unit of business so huge because of being able to use systems that are free to operate or cost pennies to operate. And then content, right, the ability to garner attention at scale for a small incremental cost, like a YouTube channel. And so when you see like those 4 corners, those 4 points of leverage, it's like everybody's starting to say, okay, this is the corner that I want to focus on. Like maybe it's marketing, and I'm going to focus on how you create content, or I'm going to focus on innovative campaigns, and I'm going to make directory, or I'm going to focus on leadership development, and I'm going to focus on collaboration, right? Or it's like, I'm going to talk about money and we're going to talk about capital, right? Or sorry, I'm going to focus on business development and talk about how you can use capital properly. Like Jen Silver talks a lot about it, right? So there's like all these different people who are starting to settle into the place where they have the best. Because at first it was like, oh, I like Randy's laundry, I like his best way of doing business, and so they went to Randy for everything. And then Randy felt like he needed a product for everything. And then all of a sudden, I think that everybody's starting to like get their jam, where it's like Becca is door-to-door sales mastery, right? And that's where she sticks, right? And it's like, you don't see her talking about leadership, you know? And so, and I don't hear you talking a lot about door to door, you know what I mean? And nobody's insecure about being in the same room with each other.
Yeah. Well, I think that the collaboration piece is key. I mean, the reality of it is, I mean, the way this industry works and talking about the dollars that get thrown around in the roofing business. I mean, you could be a really bad roofer or have no clue what you're doing and still make $1 million. And I mean, name another industry that's like that. I mean, historically, outside of roofing, you know, the $1 million companies are the 1%ers. The entire industry falls within that realm in roofing. And then when you add in, you know, some of the, you know, you get big storms, you can grow a business fast, a lot of cash flow coming in and out. I mean, you can find the people that you vibe with the best and have multiple resources to help you implement into your business at any given time. And we've all realized and discovered that as well. You know, I have a number of clients that work with you, vice versa, and clients that, sure, we can teach and help with sales and help people build a sales system, which is one of the things that we do. But no, we are not an absolute master of door knocking and canvassing and building that side of business. Like, my passion is leadership. I want to develop leaders. I want great leaders to emerge who then develop great leaders who then build amazing companies who then help the entire industry rise. And if all these other things that we do help get to that point, that's, for me personally, if I'm working with somebody, that's one of the main focuses. Sure, we have an entire operating system for your business, but I'm not going to build your CRM system, your HubSpot for you, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to come out and knock doors with you. That's not what I do. But so it's nice that you can collaborate and find the right coach and the right system and the right, you know, organization that you really vibe with, and you're going to get results. I think the reality of it is there's something to be learned from everybody in every situation. And those who see that make those investments, they get results and they grow exponentially faster than those that are just like, oh, it's just a bunch of noise and I'm not going to pay for coaching and I'm not going to, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But watch what happens when the younger people, or not necessarily the younger, but the younger in business, right? Not younger from a physical standpoint, but younger in business. Like, hey, I'm new to the industry, and they just see, all right, well, I'm just gonna hire people and find coaches and fast track my journey. And guess what happens? They see a lot of success early because they're investing in surrounding themselves with people who are helping them grow.
You're gonna pay it either way. You're gonna pay the dumb tax.
Yeah, a lot of that myself, and now I get to help people skip it. You know?
Like, you know, that's why there was a time when I would have felt that it was a waste to spend the money on this like thing that I just bought, this $40,000 thing. And even as I was getting sold it, you know what I mean, and like it was like, I knew in a part that I wanted it when they originally just talked about it. Like, I was in the thing, and they asked a few questions in so I went to this Leadership Essentials course, right? And it was $5,000 for 2 days. And I was just like, I'll buy it. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought, like, you know, and that's when I determined that I'm not going to a conference for 2 days for less than $5,000, because I learned that like what you get at a $700 conference and what you get at a $5,000 conference are two very, 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 very different things. And I've never been to that. I've been to a $1,000 conference. I went to the AI conference for, you know, $1,100, but a $5,000 2-day conference is a very, very different game, right? And the people who speak at that level are very, very different. And all of a sudden, I found out a bunch of things I didn't know. Because usually I go to a conference and I'm like, okay, that's from Traction. Oh, okay, that's from Good to Great. Oh, that's from the 5 levels of leadership. Oh, that's from Dysfunctions of a Team. Oh, that's from the E-Myth. Like, you know, I can pick it out like that, right? And they ask questions like, what would you do if you had to hire 100 employees in the next quarter? And I'm like, damn, I don't know how I would do that. And so like they went down a lot of concepts that I never knew. So when they talked about this other program that I could get, I knew I kind of wanted it before I did it. But then, I mean, I took Grant Cardone's car sales training. I did that to sell cars. And now, you know, Cardone Ventures is now going to sell me something. So I sit down to eat my little breakfast in their like breakfast room, and the guy who sold me the ticket comes down and, okay, here's the pitch. And it's like, okay. And he's doing the, you know, have you heard it? Do you have all the information you need to make a decision? There's no right or wrong answer. No, let me talk to you some more. Yes, then make a decision, right? And then deal with the next objection and rebuttal it. Like, I knew what they were doing. And then the second guy comes in, like the sales manager, right? So I spent about 30 minutes. And just like when I was selling cars, right? Like I saw that if the husband had his arms crossed like this, I knew that my sales guy was losing him. Or if the wife was reaching for her purse, I knew that if she got that thing on her shoulder, it was time. Like there was no hopes of getting that deal back together. And I'd be watching the sales pit for these kinds of body language signs, and I would rush out there and try and help. So I must have done something, because then the sales manager shows up. He spends 30 minutes with me. And then Brandon Dawson's brother, who's the VP of sales, comes. He spends another 30 minutes with me. And all along the way, I knew I wanted to buy it, but I didn't want to be sold. Right. And I think that this is something that you want to look at when you're looking at buying some kind of coaching, program, something like this from like somebody in the roofing industry who could teach you something. Because what happened to me, because then all of a sudden it was like a switch, and I just put my credit card down. Right. And what it was is that I understood that they were the product of what I was about to buy, because they came in and they knew exactly the conversation that just had happened for the last 30 minutes, picked up at 29 and then kept going. And the next guy knew it just happened for the last 56 minutes. And he came in and picked up at 55 and then took it through to minute 90. And they were so well trained and so well duplicated and knew and had, like, remember, I'm not like a dumb guy, like I've heard, so I'm asking questions of these guys that are pretty deep.
Yeah.
Right. And, trying to like talk myself out of buying it because I hate being sold. And their answers were so well duplicated that I was like, I don't even want to buy from you because you're salespeople, because I just don't want to be sold, but you're the product of the thing that I want to buy. And so I think that that's how you decide who you buy things from. Because I was like, if I could have a team that was duplicated to the level that you three are, then I know I'd be successful. And so if I can spend some time, if I learned enough from this 2-day event that I could get access to more of this from this person, and I have to spend this, I'm like, I looked at it and said, 40,000 makes sense. Like that is, 1% of revenue. If it increases revenue by 10%, then that's a 10x return on my investment. So I had to do it. And I was like, I want the because you are the product of what I want to buy. So when you're looking at these coaches, look at the product of what they are. Don't listen to the sales pitch. Look at the product of who they are, and then buy that, because that's what you're looking for.
I love that. And that's a great way to kind of start the wrap on here. And you kind of teed me up there, because like, that's kind of how you and me both evolved. Is like, okay, we just do stuff and build a business and execute. And we saw some really good, quick success in getting magazine covers and, and all these things that started happening, and then getting all these accolades. And then people just started reaching out. They started noticing, not because I intentionally was trying to get attention, is because of what we did. And it's not me, it's my team. I created a great team. We built a great organization in a really, really competitive market. We saw some amazing things happen. We started, duplicating, implementing process from day one. And we got to a point where people started saying, hey, can you help me? Can you share what you know? Sure. Let me help you. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. If this is a thing, then we can actually help others and I developed a passion for it. And next thing you know, a book, that's when I wrote the book. And then next thing you know, we built the online course. And now I have a team of coaches that are all helping contractors across the country. And you've done the exact same thing. And I think what's really important, and I might contradict myself a little bit here, because talked about earlier about the being duplicated and kind of having your energy in different places. And, I still own a roofing company. We have 4 main verticals. We do residential, commercial, service, and solar. Right. I believe in a market that's very volatile. I need to be able to have those different levers to keep a business growing and be sustainable in a market that's changing. I'm not always relying on hail. I'm not always relying on, the capital being available for commercial to growth. I'm not always relying on the government giving huge rebates for solar, but based on what does happen, I can adjust the business to then stay on an upward trajectory and grow a solid business. That's my philosophy on roofing, right? That's how I do it. And now, we are duplicating that and kind of helping others. But the problem is, yes, what I was getting at is, yes, I started the academy, I wrote the book, and I started doing the consulting thing. And now I have 2 businesses with leadership teams and a lot going on in both businesses. And it's like, I contradict myself a little bit, because it's like, I would like to probably focus on one or the other, but the thing is, they're so correlated. And I believe that, I'm willing to do the extra work, because I think my coaching has more impact because I'm still in the day-to-day learning of roofing, right? Because you just said it. It's always, you're always learning. You're always going to, is rinse and repeat. You build processes. Guess what? They break. You got to build new
I wouldn't be as
You grow.
I
You got
wouldn't
to
be able to
chase
do
it.
what
You
I
got to.
do if I wasn't a month at
so
a time.
evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I don't feel that if I were to just say, all right, selling the roofing company, I'm out of roofing and I'm just going to focus on coaching, within 2 months, I'm antiquated. And now all of a sudden I'm not giving as much value. And this is how I look at it for me personally, and why I do both.
I agree with that,
Why
Randy.
do I say focus on roofing
I
and
have to
coaching?
push back
Is
on that.
because
You've learned so much that, yes, you might lose load of local trends, but you might learn more about what's going on nationally. You might, because how much you take that time that you're doing. I have to push back. I believe it's like saying that making your bed at 4 in the morning makes you successful. There's broke people that make their bed at 4 in the morning, and there's rich people who haven't made their bed in 20 years. You could be more impactful, perhaps, if you sold a roofing company. I believe it's what you choose. I believe that, yes, it is part of your unique selling proposition that you own a roofing company and that it gives you something to offer your customers. But I do not believe that I believe it's a limiting belief to say that it's the only reason that somebody would buy from you is because you can say you still own a roofing company because, say, Dimitri doesn't, you know what I mean? Or something like that, or Hunter did or didn't at one point in time. I believe that you are an intelligent person who knows how to develop leaders, and that is a skill set that is cultivated through fire and brimstone of starting a business. And whether or not you currently still have operating capacity in your roofing company, or whether you're a shareholder, or whether you sell it entirely, I don't think that skill set disappears because you're no longer sharpening the blade every day on running a roofing company. Because you're not running a roofing company, you're building leaders, and you've built leaders in Elite, and you can continue to build leaders elsewhere. And you will continue to be a strong leader. If you went and started an underwater basket weaving company, you would still be a great leader, and you would still have to develop leaders. And you are developing leaders in your own business and Roofing Academy and the Start Build Grow Show and everything that is Randy Brothers Inc., whatever you call that, you know what I mean? That organization that you've built, you're developing leaders there. And that is the skill set. That is the product that people are buying, is the product of what you've done. And it doesn't depend on you still having a tax ID in the roofing space. But I digress. I think, yes, it's a great, unique selling point, but it is not, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, it is not what makes Randy Brothers valuable. It's not what makes your business valuable. Your value is in your ability to cultivate leaders regardless of industry. It's teaching the fundamentals of leadership, which is the same whether you're General MacArthur marching in a battle, or you're running Amazon, or you're running a roofing company. You build leaders. That's what you do.
Yeah. And I love that. And I respect and appreciate that. You know, I take that as a great compliment. And sometimes it's nice to hear that as well. And this is great content because we're doing this live on video, like going back and forth, because there's a certain mindset, and you nailed the I teach you stuff, self-limiting beliefs stuff. But here's one thing that just came out of that, and we'll start to wrap here. But part of me, yes, there's some justification of like, I'm still learning so much on the roofing side I just strongly feel that it gives me value on the coaching side. But I also do believe the core of what we do and what I do helps me if I focus on one or the other. But part of it is just like, I'm not done yet, man. You know what I mean? I'm just not done yet. I love what I do on both sides. And I feel like there's so much more that I want to accomplish in roofing before I go straight into consulting, or vice versa. Right. So at some point I'll have to kind of solve that and
you're
make
gonna
my bets. But
outwork your self-doubt on one or the other. And there will be an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. And then you will pick.
Yeah. But I love it. I love my people. I love the teams, and I love the challenges that we get to solve every day. And I got unfinished business in both. So I'm young enough and dumb enough to keep paying my dumb tax and keep grinding, working 2 full-time jobs.
It'll be scary to see what happens when you pick one or the other. And I don't care which one you pick. And I think that whenever you do pick one, you will pick one. But it'll be scary to see what happens to the one when you let go of the other. It'll be immensely crazy to see what you're capable of, because it'll just be all gas, no brake in one direction. And I'm excited to see it. And I mean, it's, yes, you could have the whole 7 lines of income, but I think that eventually Elite is just completely off your radar, and it runs because you've installed truly all the leadership needed to do it, and you don't feel the need to go back there and learn things because you feel like, or you decide that you have consultants over in Roofing Academy and you go build the $1 billion roofing company that we're all waiting to see happen, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do one or the other, but I think it'll be very, very exciting to see the day when it comes. And either way, I wish you all the best, because I think you're a great person and you've done a lot for the industry, and I'm really grateful to know you, and I'm excited to see what your future holds.
My God. Hey, you heard it here first on the Star Build Grow Show. This was an awesome end to the show. The debate that will continue to go is where to put your energy and what am I going to do next? Stay tuned. Click the button, subscribe, like, comment. We want to hear your thoughts on this. Are you chasing too many things?
Yeah, where should Randy go?
Narrow your focus. Let's hear about it. Let's hear about it in the comments, and share this out with people you care and respect and want to learn and grow. Thank you, Adam, for joining us with RBP Consulting. Buddy, God bless.